Yep, Sledge is back. Based on the dialogue, this is the Sledge that got sucked into the black hole, along with the Earth itself, in the final episode of Dino Charge. For some reason, the Earth does not survive the dimensional transference, but whatever. Just billions of people dead. Before anyone mentions how the finale undid that with the time travel, then by that logic, Sledge and his crew shouldn't be there either. Clearly hopping from one dimension into another protected them from changes in the timeline, which either means that the Earth should pop out into this universe too, or billions of people are dead because the Earth couldn't withstand the transference. Pick your poison. They don't detect the energems in this universe, but they are aware of the ninja steel metal. I guess the material is in the Dino Charge universe too. Oh, but this is super ninja steel, so it's even better. I've been kind of avoiding this topic, but what the hell makes this metal so ninja? Ninja is not just some random adjective you can slap in front of other stuff. What color is this rock? Oh, it's ninja colored. Maybe it would make more sense if we knew the full legend behind the prism, but we only get remarks about it as a power MacGuffin in Season 1, not anything related to an actual story concerning it. Anyway, Sledge and his forces arrive on the Galaxy Warrior ship and think it's abandoned, reasoning they can sell it for scrap, but Madame Odious walks in. Sledge offers to help her fix the ship in return for the asteroid that hit them.
My wife, Cassandra, loves rocks. Loves them, especially asteroids. Right, French? Right?
I missed you, Sledge. Anyway, he recruits some of his bounty hunter prisoners to help repair their ship, but one named Badana mentions to Odious what the asteroid is made out of in exchange for her freedom. After the repairs are complete, Sledge heads off with the asteroid, but Badana extracted all of the super steel ore from it without his knowing. The ship heads back to Earth, and Odious puts Galaxy Warriors back on the air. Or space, I suppose. The Rangers return to the school after summer vacation. I was going to ask why Levi is with them and not back on his concert tour, but I suppose getting his dad back convinced him to settle down with them again. Mick is dropped back on Earth to inform them of the return of Galaxy Warriors. Odious is seeking out the prism, which of course is still damaged. They try to set a trap for the villains using the prism as bait and defeat them with Preston's magic, but Odious is a powerful sorceress in her own right and is able to turn the tables on them. Using her powers, she revives the prism and uses the super steel to forge new power stars, intending them to be corrupted and evil. The Rangers escape and take not only the super steel for themselves, but the new power stars. The prism doesn't recreate everything they had, but it does restore their normal power stars and the Lion Forge armor and Zord. In the following episode, Moment of Truth, Mick constructs new Zord stars for them using the super steel, which gives them some new master modes, which I think look a lot better with more new detailing on them. Attack of the Galactic Ninjas starts a 4-part mini-arc featuring the titular Galactic Ninjas, none of whom look particularly ninja-like, especially when they're very bulky, but they've got ninja medallions that give them powers. They even come with their own foot soldiers, Foxbots, which are basically just ninja costumes with masks. We later learned their defeat is part of Madame Odious's plan, taking the medallions as each one is destroyed. She takes the 4 medallions and attaches them to a robot forged from 4 of the Foxbots combined into one, via magic of course, to turn it into her own Zord. The 4 medallions enhance it into a weapon powerful enough to withstand the attacks of their Megazords and disable them.
Show's over! Ninjas lose!
Fortunately for the team, the Zord loses power, the medallions having lost their charge. As the villains work to recharge the medallions, the prism shows the Rangers a new set of Zords that could be constructed. However, when they try to send in some super steel throwing stars into it like normal, the new Zord stars seem to become stuck. A portal opens, bringing with it 3 people in robes who claim to be able to help them with the new Zords, called the Blaze Zords.
Legends say you have to earn the power of the Blaze Zords from the prism.
Where is this legend written exactly? Like, can we get the full text? Because I'm starting to suspect this is actually just a big instruction manual that someone accidentally threw out. The 3 figures say that they have to prove themselves worthy, and the Rangers rightfully point out, well, they're already Rangers, and without them, the world is screwed, but the 3 just leave without answering that. To prove themselves, they end up helping people out around the school, even though they're busy with trying to save the world and all. The 3 robed figures return to remind them that being Power Rangers doesn't make them worthy. It's about being good people first. They use the Blaze Zords to form the Ninja Blaze Megazord. Nothing particularly interesting to mention about it. Odious's Zord comes into fight, but fortunately the Ninja Blaze Megazord is able to put up a good fight and destroy it, by launching each Ranger out of its chest to slice at it. Awesome. The three robed figures remark on how they like those teens, that they've got attitude.
Yes, we may need worthy rangers like them in the future.
And thus begins the 25th anniversary episode, Dimensions in Danger. We open with Tommy as he arrives back home to his son JJ, but before he can go inside, he's greeted by someone inside a portal. The robed figures from before return, revealing themselves to be Wes, Gemma, and Coda. This scene finally establishes a few things. Namely, that Ninja Steel takes place in the main timeline, since the Rangers recognize Wes, probably from the Silver Guardians, and that Dino Charge does indeed take place in its own separate universe. Unless, of course, Wes was recruited by the other Time Force Rangers to try to fix this time travel shenanigans from their finale, and he just said, screw it, we're splitting you guys off into your own timeline, bye! Wes explains the Time Force has created devices that allow them to travel between dimensions. But it's only used for emergencies, since as Gemma explains, traveling between different universes destabilizes the morphing grid. Unless, of course, you travel by interdimensional subway train, then you're okay. A number of Rangers have begun disappearing across different dimensions, and they're investigating. They need to get Tommy's help, for reasons that are never explained, and it seems that both Mick and all of the Ninja Steel Rangers have heard of him too. So I guess at some point his identity as a Ranger was made public? Or maybe that Ranger database from Megaforce was made available to all other Rangers. Anyway, Tommy's not answering his communicators, so they travel to Reefside to try to find him. As they arrive, something lands in his backyard and they investigate, discovering Tommy actually working for a villain named Lord Draven, who comes from an antiverse. What's more, Madame Odious shows up to talk, revealing that she's given robot technology to Draven, who's been using said technology to capture Rangers.
Show her.
Oh my god, Tommy's a robot! No wonder he was able to pursue teaching, archaeology, and being a race car driver! Draven has Odious use her magic to enhance some arrows he has. Once fired, they'll shatter the barriers between dimensions, requiring very specific instructions on when to fire them for maximum effect. They use Wes's dimensional transporter to travel to the Antiverse. Inside of Draven's fortress, we discover the robot Tommy along with a bunch of other captured Rangers. Antonio, TJ, Kat, Trent, Rocky, Gia, and of course, the real Tommy. All are hooked up to machines that are making Robot Ranger duplicates of them to be made into an army for Draven. The real Tommy manages to escape and damage the replication facility, but Draven thinks his army is big enough to send out and conquer all dimensions at this point anyway. Tommy meets up with the other Rangers and explains Draven's plan, though they're too late. He launches the first arrow and a massive tear in the universe opens up. Our heroes split up, the Ninja Steel Rangers looking for the arrow, while the veterans go to rescue the other captured Rangers. Everyone is freed.
Hey Tommy, thanks for saving us.
Asshole! Wes, Gemma, and Coda did the rescue too! Tommy engages in battle with his robot duplicate, and he unveils a spiffy little device, the Master Morpher, which allows him to swap into his various forms he's taken over the years, which is potentially an explanation for his appearance in Megaforce, but that still doesn't explain all the other inconsistencies in the final Megaforce battle. And no, I don't believe the Robot Rangers were there to represent Turbo. They would have likely been destroyed on Eltar during the attack by the United Alliance of Evil. How the Master Morpher works is not explained, but Tommy's had a few years to figure out how to build this thing, and I can believe that, especially since everyone seems so chummy in this episode, despite normally never having met each other, that they've had contact with each other, maintained regular ties to inform each other of potential threats, and maybe repair powers, much like how Adam had a repaired Morpher in Once a Ranger. It'd be an informal thing, like how in DC or Marvel there are various superhero teams who may share information, but normally don't call each other for help. It's just I find that a bit iffy because even in those universes, it's acknowledged sometimes that taking out a serious threat requires them all to unite. So why wouldn't they be aware of stuff like Madame Odious or any other past villain they've had to take out and just join forces with each new team on the regular? I suppose it's a case of not wanting to upend their own lives, but teams like Overdrive were active around the globe anyway, so it seems like they could just come to the rescue if they ever needed them. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this. Anyway, Tommy defeats his robot duplicate and runs off to rejoin the others. Brody and Sarah find the arrows and take them away. They try to escape through the dimensional tear, but the army of robots shoot them down and confront them. Draven manages to shoot a second arrow and collapse things more, but fortunately all the Rangers unite. I can actually show their morphing sequence here.
It's morphin' time!
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing that we don't get to see each individual one. I know it probably would have eaten up some screen time, but then again, we don't get a lot of what we'd want to see anyway. Like more Ranger interaction, references to what the Rangers have been doing since the end of their series, that kind of thing. They defeat the robot army, and Odious gigantifies Draven to have him shoot the last arrow, but fortunately Tommy is able to summon the White Falconzord. I guess getting access to the White Ranger powers restored the Falconzord? To snatch the arrow out of the air and redirect the arrow right into him. Combined with the Rangers all shooting their blasters at him, Draven is destroyed. The dimensional barriers are restored, and everyone says their farewell, returning to where they came from. Dimensions in Danger is okay. It is, of course, a massive step up from Megaforce's less than more phenomenal 20th anniversary celebration, but it doesn't reach the height of others. In terms of all team-up episodes, I still rank Reinforcements from the Future as the best because of how well it balances character, action, and advances the story of the previous team, with Forever Red as a very close second. And if we're only judging on anniversary episodes, then it wins flat out. Why do I feel that way? First of all, because as an anniversary, it digs into the lore of the show and continues a plot thread that had been abandoned as part of that celebration of its history. The fan service feels rewarding in it. The Astro Megaship Mark II, an appearance by Alpha with Richard Horvitz' voice, the remnants of the Machine Empire, even the meta joke of the Machine Empire being played by Beetleborgs. The action is exciting in particular in it, with very well choreographed sequences both in and out of suits. Its only real flaw, in my opinion, is how Serpentera is taken down by a toy advertisement. Dimensions in Danger, by contrast, is pretty much all action, and not great action, unfortunately, just okay. And not really much in the way of fan service, other than the returning Rangers and everything focused around Tommy, which is also a bit of a problem. The episode kind of worships Tommy in particular, and that needs to stop. Look, I like Tommy too. He was the most interesting character for a good chunk of the show, but it's time to move on. There have been other heroes, other challenges, other difficult things. One Ranger has died and come back to life, and she did not receive the amount of worship that Tommy gets. Don't get me wrong, the Master Morpher is so damn cool, and it's great to see him go through his various outfits. Minus Turbo Red for some reason. Maybe they thought it'd be redundant with Zeo Red. Plus, the return of the Falconzord was more satisfying than what happened with Serpentera, but they thank him in particular. Everyone mentions how they've heard of Tommy. He's the one who saves the day and deals the final blow to Draven. He gets a special robot that looks like him that he has to take on. It's just too much. I joked years ago about it being the Tommy Oliver show featuring the Power Rangers, but it's not his show anymore at all, and he kind of overshadows everyone else, including the Ninja Steel Rangers, when this should be a team-up with everyone on equal footing. They don't end up looking bad or anything, which puts it above Once a Ranger, just not given as much attention. I definitely think making this a two-parter would have helped a lot. Maybe the first part showing the Rangers getting kidnapped, and the second being the rescue. All that being said, it's great to see a lot of these characters again, if even briefly. Since Dino Charge didn't have a team-up, Megaforce getting represented by, in my opinion anyway, the coolest member of their team was nice. Though apparently years later, she's still wearing the same damn outfit. Gemma gets to shine on her own as opposed to being part of a double act, and hey, actually seeing an RPM Ranger outside of their costume is great. And Wes being the one to take charge with the Dimensional Portal stuff is only second to Carter Grayson in terms of people who would be doing just that. Also nice to get Rocky in on the action, since Steve Cardenas didn't get a chance to be a part of Forever Red. And hey, Coda being there gives us a chance to do at least some kind of follow-up to Dino Charge, and finally acknowledge that the cluster crap that was their finale didn't affect any other teams. That being said, the acknowledgement that Ninja Steel takes place in the main timeline opens up the question of why some Rangers at the beginning seemed confused by the concept of Rangers. I didn't really comment on it since I figured Ninja Steel would end up taking place in its own universe too, but nope. Antonio and Trent were there. Still, unlike Legendary Battle or Once a Ranger, it was nice to get such a wide variety of representation, with all of neo-saban represented, the original Saban era, and the Disney era. It's solid, it's serviceable, but it's not the best. Also, why were Coda, Wes, and Gemma dressed up in robes in this and the previous episode? On the topic of the robes, I wish we had had more scenes of them doing that whole robe, wise, mysterious figure thing, as opposed to just a one-off appearance in the episode before. With the distorted voices, you didn't need to have the actual actors doing them, and you could have built it up more over the course of Super Ninja Steel. Anyway, back to the main plot in Prepare to Fail, where Madame Odious recruits General Tyneman and his starfighter Brax to help fight the Rangers. Badana's a big fan of Brax, and although Tyneman wants to keep her back, she threatens to reveal his secret to him. We soon learn in Magic Misfire what his secret is.
I wish I was big.
To be more accurate, he is absolutely tiny and he drives around in a robot body of himself, wanting Odious to perform a spell that will restore him to normal. And Brax doesn't seem to care, so why was that even a thing? She agrees, but requires him to kidnap Mick. He does so, and the Rangers blow Tyneman up before she can really fulfill her end of the bargain. Odious creates a mind control device and uses it on Mick, having him contact the Rangers and claim that he's going to visit his sick parents back in the Lion Galaxy, when in reality, he's going to construct a large-scale version of the mind control device to use on the entire world. Odious plans on using the mind-controlled humans as soldiers to take over the universe. It's a bit of a surprise to see that level of competence. Usually a mind control plot would be a done-in-one with him just asking them to hand over the stars while mind-controlled. At least we know the show can't drop any more bombshells on us.
My cousin Zach's having a birthday party.
Oh, really? Where at?
Presto. Angel Grove?
Or at least not any ad-libbed ones by Preston's actor that raise a lot of questions. Anyway, Brax is destroyed. He contributed so much to the show, as you can tell by the fact that I mentioned his destruction in the same paragraph he was introduced in. Viktor and Monty are kidnapped and forced to perform as clowns. Truly, they have now achieved their final forms, in front of the audience at Galaxy Warriors, with the signal broadcast to Summer Cove. Anyone who watches it gets mind-controlled, and it spreads as every channel and monitor is overridden. Due to relationship issues with Calvin being a douchebag and Haley rightfully breaking things off with him for it, although the show frames it like she's overreacting, she's not, Calvin gets hit with the mind control. As Odious starts taking humans to her ship, I'm not sure she'll be able to fit a few billion on there, but whatever, the Rangers start planning on fighting back, leading us into our finale. Reaching the Nexus. The mind-controlled Mick leads Odious towards their base, forcing the Rangers to split up. Brody, Preston, and Levi going after Odious, while the others try to stop Badana from taking humans up to the ship. Before Redbot can escape with the Super Steel, Odious blows open the doors and arrives. Haley and Levi follow Calvin with a group of humans teleported up, while Odious manages to escape with the Prism and the Super Steel, having Mick forge a new ninja star with it. Redbot, having overheard how the mind control works, tells those on the ship how to deal with the mind control signal. Odious corrupts the Nexus Prism so it'll work for her. The star that Mick tosses into it a replica of the one that was shattered back at the start of the series. Unfortunately, before Brody's team can deal with that, his father shows up, under the same mind control and ready to fight. You know, the overenthusiastic opening narrator kept referring to him as the greatest ninja master of Earth, and now I just imagine said greatest ninja master of Earth sitting on his ass trying to get caught up on 10 years of TV. Haley reaches the satellite transmitting the signal, but Calvin is there to stop her. Instead of using the power of love to free him, she uses the power of guns, shooting the satellite and freeing everyone. Unfortunately, the Nexus star is finished and it starts infusing her with power. Calvin and Haley make up their relationship issues that the humans aboard the ship rebel and start fighting the Codabots. Once freed, Viktor and Monty are encouraged by the Rangers to find a way to teleport everyone back to Earth. The three of them rejoin the others as Odious assumes her full power and blasts everyone back. The Rangers retreat to come up with a new plan, while Viktor and Monty succeed in teleporting everyone down to Earth. Before Cosmo and Badana can stop them, they toss over some explosive juggling balls from the clown act.
Boom voyage!
Ha! The explosion is strong enough to heavily damage the ship and send it away. And I'm pretty sure that's not how explosions work, but I guess we'll add that to the list of things Power Rangers think science does, like air on the moon. The Rangers use Preston's magic to reforge the original Nexus star from their own power stars, which infuses them with its energy. Now on a proper equal footing, the Rangers use the power of their glitter to force Odious back. Charging at each other with their full power, the Rangers destroy Odious once and for all. In the end, Viktor and Monty are awarded a trophy for saving everyone. With Odious and Galvanax both gone, the Rangers' powers are sent back into the prism, which recovers itself in ninja steel and flies off, awaiting the day when its powers might be needed again. We get a tearful, heartfelt farewell for Mick.
I'll never forget you guys. Especially since I'm not leaving.
Yeah, he sets up a satellite link with his parents, and everyone's still a team, and happy ending all around. And of course, we have our requisite Halloween and Christmas clip shows, with the Halloween one featuring the Rangers dressed up as, from left to right, Coda, Captain Marvel, Hyperstrike from Who Wants to Be a Superhero, Jimi Hendrix, Pharaoh Atem, and Rory Williams. The plot involves a group of monsters, including some reused costumes like Necroli and a Phantom Beast General, swapping bodies with the Rangers as they're brought to Halloween Intergalactic Court. Because in space, Halloween is universal. They have to prove who they are by using clips from past episodes. The Christmas episode is a bit different. Like in Dino Charge, it takes place after the finale, and finally follows up on how the season started. Sledge and his forces find the once again damaged Galaxy Warrior ship and head over to turn it into scrap as vengeance for being tricked. They reprogram the Coda bots to work for them, while Sledge reconfigures the stage into a talk show for Poisandra. Sledge plans to take the Power Stars from the Rangers while they're in the middle of the talk show. Back on Earth, the Rangers are preparing to team up with Santa to deliver presents for charity when a package from Wes arrives, containing a dimensional transporter like they used before, and my god, this show is insane and wonderful. He gave it so they can help Rangers in other dimensions should the need arise. And that is brilliant for future crossover potential. I don't know if it's something that'll actually pay off, but kudos for forward thinking. As long as the device is distributed, it means they can have a new Power Rangers show set in other universes and allow for crossovers without fear of worrying about coming up with an elaborate reason why the team-up is happening, nor worry about maintaining the continuity. It grants them the freedom to do stuff like Dino Charge did with undoing the extinction of the dinosaurs, or have creative premises like RPM's post-apocalyptic world, and yet still have the teams unite at times. The Nexus Prism returns and restores the Rangers' powers as Sledge arrives with a snow monster to kidnap them. Preston is the only one to get away, with both him and Sledge accidentally getting sent into another dimension. While clips play of the Rangers' past adventures on the talk show, Sledge and Preston arrive in another dimension. Sledge takes the portal device, but before he can kill Preston, a pterodactyl lifts Preston up and takes him away. The Rangers realize that the key to defeating Poisandra is getting her worked up about Sledge and what a crappy boyfriend he is. Preston, meanwhile, is dropped by the pterodactyl right on top of Coda. Recognizing Sledge's name, Coda helps him with a T-Rex that scares off Sledge. They rush through the portal again and return to the main universe, Sledge in hot pursuit. Though I would have brought the T-Rex with me, because why the hell not? The two Blue Rangers help the others escape while Poisandra rants at Sledge. They jump out of the ship and land in Santa's sleigh. And I just realized that I typed that. The Rangers defeat the snow monster while Coda and Santa deliver a present to the ship. A bomb!
I'm here to eat candy canes and kick ass, and I'm all out of candy canes!
The ship is finally completely destroyed, and it's implied Sledge and his crew are taken out with it. But then again, they've survived explosions right to their faces before. Coda invites the team to a caveman family Christmas, and like Dino Charge's Christmas episode, I must ask, how do you have Christmas before Jesus existed? Ninja Steel is a step down from Dino Charge. From what I've read of fans' reactions, I seem to be in the minority on this, with many saying it's another truly awful season, but honestly I don't think it's that bad. The worst parts are certain Viktor and Monty segments, which I'll talk about in a bit. But in terms of story, it's not particularly awful. Really, its crime is in being kind of mediocre. If I was to rank the neo-saban era, Dino Charge would be first, Ninja Steel second, Samurai third, and Megaforce last. But Ninja Steel only gets second by virtue of not being as bad as the other two behind it. The characters are likable, there are fun villains, 2 okay team-up episodes, the Christmas episode's biggest weakness is in being a clip show, and a lot of standard Power Rangers fare. That's the thing. Of all the neo-saban stuff, Ninja Steel feels closest to classic Mighty Morphin fare, with more filler episodes, mostly goody-good characters with little development, a robot buddy, wacky advanced technology, and even 2 bullies who have comedic subplots. The problem, in turn, is that it's just not very interesting. Everything is perfectly competent, but especially by season 2, it feels like a lot of the show is just spinning its wheels. There are no massive twists or turns that recontextualize the show, no heartbreaking moments of character revelation that make you want to find out what happens next. For all the talk that people told me about how Ninja Storm was more of a comedic series and I should judge it on those merits, Ninja Steel feels honestly more like a lighthearted comedy, that there isn't that much at stake. The biggest reveal we get is that Aiden was a robot and not just under mind control like one might think, but it's not played up how much of a tragedy it is other than Brody being slightly mopey while singing a song. Part of the problem here is that the villains aren't that compelling. Once again, they're over-designed, but personality-wise, there's not much to go into. Galvanax was a meathead, honestly no better than Master Xandred, in that he spent most of the season sitting on his ass directing things to happen, and rarely ever took action himself. He wasn't witty or fun, he was just your standard-issue, gravelly-voiced villain. They implied something more at one point when it looked like the Rangers were stronger than him, and it was a concern that being defeated directly would hurt his standing with his viewers, but nothing ever came from that. The Galaxy Warriors setup as a kind of intergalactic wrestling show where the monsters get to show off their abilities was pretty cool and unique, but they don't do anything with the concept beyond that. Why not play more into that with wrestling-style drama, alliances between fighters, more titles for them to win? Maybe Galvanax gets deposed for a while because of a match, or maybe a Ranger wins a title and has to defend it against monsters coming after it, or maybe they end up running the show for a division. Like, say, they don't want to run a division made of evil monsters, but they have to, or else they'll be instantly killed. Or the title belt will disintegrate them when they wear it. Cosmo was fun because he was so lively, but he's still just a mook in the army and doesn't do anything more than introduce the monsters. Madame Odious was better in that she was actually making plans and manipulations and playing the long game, but nothing really changed about the dynamic. Odious was perfectly competent and executed reasonable plans that ended up paying off. It's just there wasn't really anything interesting to say about her other than she was treacherous and crafty. To compare to Dino Charge, Heckle's introduction as the main villain of the second season brought a lot more manic energy and dynamics so that he wasn't predictable, and ultimately his story became more interesting as we learned more about him. It's almost like for a lot of villains, the show struggles to write anything compelling about costume monsters, but whenever they're more human-looking, it's easier for them to come up with a storyline. Not always, of course, but it's just something I've noticed. A bunch of basically one-note villains are introduced for multiple episodes, like the Galactic Ninja or General Tynaman, and they do nothing interesting before they get destroyed. It's just too simple. Now, what actually was interesting on the show were Viktor and Monty. Obviously, it's an attempt to recreate the Bulk and Skull dynamic, and I think they pull it off for the most part, without making them carbon copies. While Bulk and Skull were punk bullies, hating the teens because of their goody-good nature and their own independence, Viktor was a preppy kid who was so far up his own ass that he became a complete circle. His obsession with earning a 50th trophy was a form of validation to viewing himself as superior to everyone around him. He was the best and thus deserved to be recognized as the best, with Monty and ever-faithful Toadie and possible love interest given how obsessed he was with him. Their schemes were idiotic, but mostly the same kind of idiotic one would expect from the old days. And frankly, Viktor's over-the-top ego trip manifesting in costume changes and thinking he was the greatest thing in the world basically made him an almost Gaston-like figure. You really do expect people to break into song whenever his teeth twinkle. At the beginning of Super Ninja Steel, they actually get a theme song that's very reminiscent, or at least a variant of, the original Bulk and Skull theme.
Thank you. Park it here, boys.
Unfortunately, there's a big reason why a lot of fans hate the two, and it's mostly revolving around something they do in 5 or 6 episodes spread around the 2 seasons. Fart jokes. Every time an episode revolved around it, my enthusiasm would drop like a rock and would only be salvaged if in the next episode, Viktor broke out a new fabulous costume. They are awful. But what is it about them that makes them more awful than any other time the two are acting like morons? I hesitate to talk about this a bit because I feel like it might come across as, this is Power Rangers and deviations from that must be rejected. You know, that kind of gatekeeping nonsense. I'll criticize the show for a lot of things, but it's been going on for over 25 years, and there's been plenty of diversity of story type, characters, plot resolutions, and all that. But at the same time, there is a bit of a formula to the show overall, especially especially as it has settled into a rhythm over its life. Humor is in one way that it has its identity. I feel that there are, traditionally, 3 sources of humor that Power Rangers goes into: witty dialogue, puns, and humiliation. Witty dialogue would fall into stuff like, say, Spencer from Overdrive.
You're the best, Spencer.
If only my paycheck reflected that.
Setup and punchline. This would include snark and meta humor like we saw with RPM.
Sometimes when I morph, I can't help but notice this gigantic explosion right behind me for no apparent reason.
Puns are pretty self-evident, wordplay based on similar sounding things. Humiliation, though, is the most common humor we see in Power Rangers, going all the way back to Bulk and Skull. The joke comes from seeing someone get their comeuppance in some way. Bulk and Skull insult the Rangers, assume a task is simple when it isn't, and we see them fall down on their asses in the proverbial mud. Viktor and Monty's best moments fall into this as well. Viktor is so ludicrously full of himself that seeing him get taken down a peg is wonderful. It's a form of punching up. But then there are the fart jokes. These fall into gross-out humor. The joke is that they're disgusting. Gross-out humor can work fine. I can probably think of dozens of works that pull it off masterfully, but it's not really a well that Power Rangers dives into. It took like 20 years to really get that kind of joke into the show. Not that there hadn't been the occasional gross-out joke involving slime or the like, but that again really falls more into the humiliation category, assuming it was meant to be a joke at all. I hesitate to call it lowbrow humor because a lot of the humiliation jokes are built around lowbrow humor. Pratfalls, slapstick, look at the jerk get egg on his face, etc. But it's a particular form of humor that the show has never really done before, so it's just awkward when they suddenly try to do so much of it and not particularly well. And in a show that already has a problem at times sinking too far into this is for kids territory where the creative team comes across like they just don't care, it feels especially watered down and juvenile. It's frustrating, not funny, and just really icky, and for a lot of viewers, they can't get past the stupidity of it in this series. The interesting thing about Viktor as a bully and character, though, is that he reflects a more common, or at least modern form of bully than the old days, that's a bit more realistic. The privileged preppy who thinks he's above everyone else. I wouldn't call him entirely stupid, though, because of the setting of this season. I noted my confusion at the presence of a hoverboard, and it's not the only example of advanced tech in the hands of civilians in this show, including the Rangers commonly inventing devices, Sarah in particular, and one-off characters engaged in science and advanced projects, in particular robotics and vehicles. It's never explicitly said on the show, but several fans have speculated that the Summer Cove High School is actually a private technical school and not just a common public school. Given everything we see in the show, smaller class sizes, the rather sizable garage and junkyard of parts they have available, scientific projects for astronauts and mechanical know-how, this is not an average school. Viktor and Monty's parents could have bought their way in given their demonstration of how, well, incredibly stupid they are at times, and yet still mechanically inclined enough so as to build, say, a robotic arm for tennis, or a food dispensing machine. There's also a class built around starting up a business and would match up with Preston's presence in the school, since his father is uber rich, and why everyone seems so unimpressed with some of the awesome magic and technology on display. Same goes for Redbot when he appears in the open, and everyone is just, oh cool, a robot. On top of that, Sarah's mom is also an inventor, as she creates a device that will revolutionize beer-drinking hats. Haley's dad is a marine biologist inventor, and we see in Making Waves that he created a special underwater drone. Lots of science projects, awards for major technical achievements, and hosting charity events with more advanced sculptures. This is a place with a lot more money behind it, although for some reason they couldn't spring for a proper theater to perform stuff in, and everyone just does that in the commons area. And thus Viktor and Monty, so stupid as to not know where milk comes from on a cow, are able to survive in here because of money and a few opportunistic talents that are otherwise wasted because of their dickish personalities. The two don't really have any character development, with the only time they actually come across as selfless is when they're told that the magnet device they're inventing will help destroy the Rangers. Otherwise, they'd have been happy helping the forces of evil. But the thing is, they're not alone in lacking character development. Brody has no real character arc. He has a plot arc, his lost brother and father, but he makes no real effort to advance those things. The Aiden droid came to him, he met Levi by accident, and his father coming back was unintentional during their final battle with Galvanax. He is just a pleasant, easygoing guy. Hell, I don't think he really has any focus episodes in Season 2 at all. And hell, his father, the greatest ninja ever according to the opening narration, comes back at the end of Season 1 and then disappears through most of Season 2 except for a cameo at the beginning and end. You'd think there'd be more of a storyline of him hating the villains because of the 10 years of slavery and abuse he suffered at the hands of the monsters, but nope! He's just kind of pissy at them on occasion and then forgets about it. He's there to be the kind of leader and shout his "This is epic" catchphrase, and that's it. The rest of the Rangers get a nice balance of focus episodes, but I wouldn't really call any of them critical character development. Preston has wanted to be a magician since he was 5 years old, and then gains magic powers without having to do anything.
I can do real magic.
Preston, real magic?
Yeah, I seriously doubt that.
You're looking at the proof of it right there!
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it.
You think you might get some insight into him when his rich asshole of a father shows up, but not really. He just needs to stand up to him, and his father only becomes convinced of changing his ways because of being reminded of his dead wife. Which, by the way, 5 of the 6 Rangers are confirmed to only have a single parent. The only person who we don't know in that regard is Calvin, since we never met his parents. But anyway, the magic powers thing is kinda confusing, because it was said that the Nexus will grant your heart's desire, but it only does that for Preston. It's weird, as if they introduced that idea just so he could have actual magic instead of tricks. Preston is played by Peter Sudarso, who is actually the brother of Yoshi Sudarso, aka Coda, which helps explain why he made 2 appearances this season. And I'm not complaining about that. Coda was great, and it's very neat that we have 2 Blue Rangers who are real-life brothers. Calvin is a mechanic, and likewise no development. He has 2 forms of plot in the show: vehicle-based plot, or relationship with Haley plot. The main characteristic we get out of him is that he's absent-minded, forgets important dates, being late for something, forgetting important objects, etc. And I kind of wonder if that has to do with his schooling itself. At one point, he quits school and becomes a mechanic full-time, believing that he's learned everything there is to learn from school to achieve that goal. He's not that great at the standard academic stuff, and I wonder if that points to a schooling method that doesn't serve his particular needs. Thus, he becomes lazier and more forgetful for not training his brain to do better with that kind of thing. They say by the end of the show that he's gotten better at his forgetfulness, but we see no evidence of that, honestly. A weird casting thing happened with him. Calvin was announced to be played by Chance Simpson at Power Morphicon, but in September of 2016, he apparently left the show for unknown reasons and was replaced by Nico Greedham. Speculation suggests that it was just a visa issue and he left the show amicably with no hard feelings, but nothing's ever been confirmed. Despite, like I said, Haley getting plenty of focus episodes throughout the season, I didn't write a single thing about her character in my notes while watching. She's pleasant. In 2 episodes, she's focused on being an actor, but that's it. She does stuff, but none of it informs her character or what makes her unique. What is unique is that for the first time, we have a couple on Power Rangers who stay a couple throughout its run. Her relationship with Calvin is actually rather charming and believable. Most of the time when we see them together, they're holding hands, laying on each other, basically doing all the body language stuff associated with it. We get cheek kisses, but not any full-on kisses because I guess Saban is afraid of cooties or something. I don't know why it doesn't happen, but yeah, I do like the 2 as a couple. It's just we're not given much more to them beyond that. According to her actor, at one point there was going to be a plot where Calvin would dump Haley and hook up with Sarah, but the 2 actresses objected, saying it would be disrespectful to their characters' friendship and teach a bad lesson to young girls. I don't know if I entirely agree with that, since sometimes people are just more compatible, and I've had friends who have split off relationships and joined with other friends before. But then again, if Calvin was gonna dump Haley to hook up with Sarah, yeah, it would look kind of douchey and potentially harm their friendship if Sarah was receptive to that. On that note, Sarah has probably the most actual development, I'd say, but it's still not much. She's an overachiever and technical genius, and it's just kind of played as normal, another element that contributes to the school's purpose in my opinion. She not only customizes her hoverboard to increase its speed, but she invents holographic technology that's linked to her own mind. That in turn is turned into a weapon for the Rangers, as well as a device that transforms any food put into it into cookies. that apparently tastes pretty dang good. This comes to a head in Prepare to Fail, where after acing a quiz, she believes there's no need for her to study for the follow-up quiz. After all, given how smart she's already demonstrated herself as, not only with the quiz, but all the wondrous things she's invented, there's clearly no reason for her to worry about such things. It's only after she fails the quiz hard that it takes her arrogance down. And that's pretty much it. It's not the worst arc in the world, if you can call it an arc, but it's not the greatest. Levi's development, what little there is tied into his career as a famous country singer. He chooses to abandon his world tour for the more important job of helping the Rangers, and in a later episode, he decides to be more friendly to a rather overzealous fan, as opposed to rejecting him. And as someone who has the smallest of internet fame by talking about comic books and Power Rangers, yeah, I don't know if that was the best call. The kid wasn't the worst stalker in the world, but he did lie a bit and tried to emulate his clothes style after Levi in a single white female kind of creepy way. The connection with him actually being Aiden almost feels like an afterthought, considering it doesn't really change anything other than show, oh hey, we don't have to look for the real Aiden now. Not that we ever did. Redbot has 1 or 2 character development episodes, but they're not really that noteworthy. He's really just the alpha of the show, there to do some extra assists with the Rangers and building things, but otherwise doesn't contribute much. More goes to Mick, who, while not really a mentor in the traditional sense, does act as one. He'll often give an analogous lesson to the Rangers who are experiencing a problem and let them work out for themselves the reasoning. General lessons like not believing everything you hear, don't react so over the top, focus on one problem instead of getting lost in multitasking, etc. He has no character development, but as a wise friend, he's good and enjoyable. It's a shame because it feels like they were going to do an episode revolving around the stuff with Princess Vieira and how he was sold into slavery and the loss of connection to his family, but it's pretty much just a shrug and everything's resolved. That's another kind of problem with this show. The narrative pacing seems off. The standard structure of an episode is establish problem, monster/foot soldiers come down to fight, problem escalates, fight monster, recontextualize problem to solve later, final battle, and then resolution on problem. In Ninja Steel, though, the resolution of the problem usually happens about halfway through the episode, with maybe an epilogue at the end, but the second half is taken up by a longer monster fight, and it can be a bit draining when it's paced like that. It's not bad, it just feels a bit more rushed as a result. Ninja Steel is not great, but it's not the worst series ever. It's mediocre at worst, average at best. It doesn't really have anything to say, but at least it's not saying anything horrible. A bunch of heroes fight the bad guys and win the day, and that's pretty dang enjoyable. Now only if they didn't keep adding the word ninja to everything.
Why is everybody in this show a f***ing ninja?
When History of Power Rangers next returns, the Hasbro era will begin, and we'll see if they can escalate the show past its slump with Power Rangers Beast Morphers.
The Power Ranger legacy is in good hands.